A Grandmother's Signature Baked Good from Memory. By Melanie Knapp. Once upon a time in a far-off land there was a woman who hummed in her kitchen with the embarrassing dirt floor and the little bit of trees and grass in the yard. She worked to make things for her children and the other children. She had to leave that countryside village because she and her husband wanted a better life for their children and to help others in a new place. Her and her husband got on a donkey, and while she was pregnant they sauntered and walked and pulled the donkey, and as it trot led over pebbles and paths and roads. Finally they got to a boat where they were separated. How hard to be separated when she was pregnant. The voyage was rough and beautiful at times. There were a lot of people just hanging on hoping they would make it to the new land of America. They got to Ellis Island off of New York where many people have gotten to, and that was good to arrive in such a place. They traveled from there to Toronto where they had their baby and named her Anne. In Italy she would have been called Anina, but in Toronto was called Anne. They settled there and lived in a train boxcar with regular furnishings. And helped her family by learning English quickly and translating for her family. She had 2 younger sisters and 1 younger brother. She stood up for them, and helped them, and played with them. She was such a great help to her mother, and she started working as a seamstress at an early age. She quickly moved up to be a manager and to work with people, and to help them be fair to one another and work hard. She got married to Peter, who was 10 years older than her, and was from the different city of Niagara Falls, which was near New York. She loved to see him laugh and be so kind with the kids and grandkids. She loved to look up to him, and to love having him near her. She loved being in a family, and they got a ring made with the birthstones of each member in their family after they had been together for a while, and had 3 girls. Their girls grew up and the older one went to Western University. She met the love of her life when she signed up to help people in Mexico. She went there with him, and while in her village he traveled to meet her, and proposed to her. He helped her with a sickness, and she helped his heart feel loved. Back in Canada they moved to Owen Sound 3 hours north of Toronto. They had 3 kids of their own. 2 girls and 1 boy. The kids grew up, and they won a family award for cross-country skiing to raise money for kids with disabilities. They won a huge trophy. They did many things like this as a family. The family built a log cabin off of the Bruce Trail close to the Reserve of Nature and Indigenous Peoples. The family did a 10-day canoe trip together. The family went to Toronto many times to visit their grandmas. My name is Melanie and I am the middle child of those 3 kids. I had a pet goat that reminded me of a unicorn when I was a child. I took singing lessons for a long time. I sang to the goat outside in the pasture. I later watched the animals around where I lived. I recently bought cashews for the squirrels. I write about the nature I see and how beautifully emotional it is to see things growing and living. I came back to Owen Sound as an adult. Our small village of 23,000 is nestled between 2 sides of the Niagara Escarpment. I live not too far from either side. My grandma and lived down the road from me for much time. I had the joys of helping care for her in her older years. At 100 she shared the same birthday as Christopher Robin from Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh is named after a bear that was bought by a serviceman in Winnipeg, where Winnie was an animal that was like a therapy animal for the servicemen. They went to England and the man brought Winnie to the zoo, and the zoo cared for Winnie with food and water and a place to stay, but Christopher Robin came and cared for Winnie in other ways with kindness and patience. And Christopher Robin even sat right beside the bear many times. My grandma lived to help many people, and at 106 months she passed on. She is fondly remembered in fun ways by myself and others. She is sadly remembered by some who didn't get the chance to visit her for a long time. Her spirit is near my place near the Niagara Escarpment. She will help me remember how to make Italian cookies, or cake, or breads, or pasta. I can't have too many of those things as my sugars need to stay more even, but sometimes like this Christmas when I can't remember the recipe to anything in particular, her precious and tender spirit will help me make something delicious that smells of the olden days and tastes fresh and new and delicious. The love of Christmas is good in my grandma and her family. There were visits and there was food and there were presents. I remember my grandma always doing up the presents so beautifully with colors and ribbons and boxes. I remember that once she drove halfway from Toronto, and we drove halfway from Owen Sound, and we met there just so she could fill our trunk with presents for her. It was so precious and a beautiful memory. The cookie I will make or buy or have this Christmas or even just learn the recipe for is Pizzelles. My grandma makes excellent Pizzelles. They are such a wonderful flat cookie with a now flake design in them. They are delightful and delicious.